Okay, we're here today to do a pre-trip inspection on an international bus. It's either a Class C or Class B bus, depending on what weight range you're looking at on the manual. So to start the pre-trip, the very first thing I do is approach the bus, make sure that it's sitting level. That shows me that there's no tires that are lacking air pressure. Then I go ahead and look underneath the bus and make sure that there's no leaks such as oil, transmission fluid, coolant, those types of things. I also am looking underneath the bus to see if there's anything hanging such as exhaust pipes, wires, any parts that would not be properly secured. Then I go ahead and look at all of the front lenses on the bus, making sure that they're mounted properly, they're not cracked or broken, they're the proper color and size. So I go ahead and check all the front lenses. Then I'm going to check my mirrors and make sure that all the mirrors are not cracked or broken, there's nothing impeding the vision, and that they're securely mounted. There's no stickers or cracks or breaks. Then I go ahead and open my hood to look at the engine. And I'll start on the left side. Okay, over here I can see this is my brake fluid chamber, and I make sure that it has sufficient brake fluid, that it's above the fill line. I also see my power steering fluid chamber, and I would check to make sure that it is above the fill line, that it has sufficient power steering fluid. I would check my power steering fluid hoses, making sure that they are secured, that there's no cracks, breaks, that they're not frayed or broken, that there's no leaks. I would make sure that my power steering mechanism is working properly, it's properly mounted and secured, there's no cracks, breaks, missing bolts. The belt to the power steering is not frayed, cracked, or broken. It has no more than a 1/2 inch to 3/4 inch of slack. I would also check my coolant and the radiator cap to make sure it's tight. I can see in the sight window that the coolant level is sufficient. I would check my coolant hoses, making sure that they're not cracked or broken, they're not frayed or leaking. I would make sure that all of the hoses, the power steering hose and all of the hoses that I can see are not cracked, broken, frayed, or leaking. Then I would go ahead and check my steering column. I would make sure that it is straight, that it's not cracked or broken or shows no signs of welded repair. I would look at my steering gearbox and make sure that there's no that is securely mounted, there's no missing bolts, and there's no leaks. I would check my pitman arm, making sure that there's no cracks or breaks, that it's securely mounted. My drag link, making sure there's no cracks or breaks and that it's securely mounted, there's no signs of welded repair. My steering arm, making sure there's no cracks or breaks, that it's securely mounted, and that it shows no signs of welded repair. I would check my brake lines, making sure that they're secure, they're properly mounted, there's no cracks, frays, or leaks. I would check my leaf springs to make sure that there's no cracks or breaks, there's none missing, it's securely mounted, there's no signs of welded repair. I would check my leaf spring U-bolts and mounts, making sure that there's no cracks or breaks and it's securely mounted. I would go ahead and check my axle and make sure that it is securely fastened, that there's no cracks or breaks or signs of welded repair. I would also go ahead and check my discs. This has disc brakes right here, so you can see that it has no holes, cracks, or uneven wear. I would check my brake pads and make sure that there's at least a 1/4 inch of pad on my brake pads. I would check the inside and outside tire walls, making sure there's no cracks, breaks, bulges, no signs of wear or leaks. I would check the inside and outside tire rim, making sure there's no cracks, breaks, signs of welded repair. I would check all of my lug nuts, making sure that there's none missing, that they're securely fastened, that there's no rust or shiny metal showing wear. I would also check my bolts, making sure that none are missing, they're secure, and there's no signs of welded repair. I would check my tire stem, making sure it's straight, that there's a cap, that there's no leaks. This is where I would check tire pressure, and the front tires need 95 psi. I would also check my front tire wear and tread, making sure that there's at least 4 32 inch of tread. I would check my shock absorbers, making sure that they're securely mounted and there's no cracks or breaks. Then I'm on the right side of the engine, and I would look and make sure that my alternator is securely mounted. There's no cracks, breaks, or missing bolts. The alternator belt is secure. It's not got any more than a 1/2 to 3/4 inch of give when I push on it. It's not cracked, frayed, or broken. I would look at my water coolant, which is right in here, or my water pump, I'm sorry, my water pump, and make sure that it's not cracked or broken, that it's securely mounted. It shares belts with the power steering mechanism. I would also make sure that I would pull out my oil dipstick, I would wipe it off, I would put it back in, I would pull it out again to make sure it's above the fill line. I would do the same thing with my transmission fluid dipstick, making sure that it is above the fill line. This is where I could fill my washer fluid if it needed washer fluid. I would go ahead and look at my frame, making sure that it has no cracks or breaks, it looks straight, there's nothing other than factory made holes. Again, here's another leaf spring. I would make sure that it's securely mounted, that it's not cracked, broken, shows no signs of welded repair. Here's the mounts to the leaf springs. They look secure. They are not cracked or broken. The shock absorber is not cracked or broken. It's showing no signs of welded repair. Here's the brake lines. They look securely mounted. There's no leaks, breaks, cracks, or dry rot. Okay, so we've already checked a front tire, so I'll go ahead and skip that. I can see the exhaust going on back right there. It's securely mounted. There's no signs of breaks, cracks, leaks, or welded repair. This right here is where my my fuel cap is, so I'd make sure that it's in place, that it's secure, and that it does not have any breaks or cracks, or it's not missing. And the door is also secure. Okay. I would go ahead and check my wipers to make sure that they are mounted securely, and that the blades are intact, and that the blades are not cracked or missing or broken. I can also check my windshield from here, making sure that there's no cracks or breaks, that there's nothing impeding my vision through the windshield. And since they normally say to check the driver's side of the vehicle, I'm going to go to the driver's side. Actually, I forgot the fuel cage. I can see that the fuel cage is securely mounted. There's no cracks or breaks, signs of welded repair. Also, the fuel tank is not leaking. It's not cracked or broken, and it's securely mounted. Continuing down, here's some, and then the rest of the exhaust system. The pipe is not cracked, broken, or showing signs of welded repair. It's properly mounted. So I'll go ahead and go to the other side of the vehicle, since they want you to normally test the driver's side. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and check the battery compartment and make sure that the batteries are all securely mounted, that the electrical connections are secure, there's no leaks or corrosion. The battery connections are not rusty or corroded. The battery door is securely mounted. Okay, and I would follow along this side of the bus, making sure that all of my markers are properly mounted, they're the proper color, and that they're not broken or cracked. Underneath the bus here, I would go ahead and look for my drive shaft making sure that it's straight, it's not cracked or broken, and it's properly mounted and secure. I would also look at my universal joints, making sure that they're not cracked or broken, showing signs of welded repair, and they're not missing. I would go ahead and look at my back tire area. Again, there's leaf springs. I would make sure that they're not cracked or broken. There's none missing or showing signs of welded repair. Also, the U-bolts and mounts for the leaf springs are in good condition. There's no signs of welded repair. They're not cracked, broken, missing. I would go ahead and check my rear tires, making sure that both of them and also the ones on the other side have at least 2 32 inch of tread. I would check both the inside and outside tire walls, making sure that there's no bumps, bulges, cracks, breaks, or leaks. I would go ahead and check both valve stems, making sure that they're straight. They've got the caps on them and there's no leaks. This is where I would check air pressure. The back tires need 115 psi of air pressure. I would check my lug nuts, making sure that they're not cracked or broken, that they're all, none are missing, that they're secure, that they're not rusted, or showing shiny metal, showing signs of wear, that the bolts are all secure, that there's none missing, they're not cracked or broken. I would check my discs way back in here, making sure that they're not cracked, broken, they don't have holes or uneven wear, and that the brake pads are, they have at least 1/4 inch of pad on it, and that they're securely mounted. I would check my frame coming all the way back, making sure that it's not cracked, broken, uneven, and that there's only factory place holes, that there's no signs of welded repair. Okay, in the back of the bus, I would check that all of the lenses are not cracked or broken, that they're securely mounted, they're the proper color and size for the vehicle. I would also check to make sure that the license plate is securely mounted and that the tag is within date. I would check the back emergency door, making sure that it properly works. It's securely mounted and there's no impedance to opening and closing it. I would also check my tail pipe and make sure that there's no obstructions, that it's straight, it's not cracked or broken, that it's mounted securely. Okay, coming to the door of the bus, I would make sure that it opens and closes freely, that the hinges are well mounted, and that the door is secure, that the windows and seals are intact and there's nothing broken, cracked, or missing. I would also go on all windows of my bus, making sure that they're not cracked, broken, or missing. As I enter the bus, I would make sure that the steps are free of any obstacles. I would make sure that all of the floor mats in the whole bus are securely mounted. There's nothing that is cracked or broken and would cause trippage. I would also check and make sure that the rail is securely mounted and not broken or missing. I would check for my safety items. I would make sure that the reflective tape or matting on the stairs is in place and securely mounted. I would go ahead and check my extinguisher, making sure that it's in date and that it's within the green margin. I would also make sure that I have extra fuses for the bus. I would make sure that I have my first aid kits, my body fluid cleanup kit, and I would make sure that I have my 3 triangles. They're in this box. I would put them up and make sure that they are in working order. Then I would go ahead and check all of my seats, the backs and the seat cushions and the frames, making sure that they're all securely mounted, that there's none missing, cracked, or broken. I would check all 5 emergency exits, which includes the back door, 2 roof hatches, 2 windows, making sure that all of them work properly. I can open and close them with no hazards or difficulty. Okay, so we have just gone ahead and shut the hood and made sure that it's securely latched so that we can proceed with the inside of the bus. That allows me to not have the hood in my way of vision when I go ahead and do the brake tests. So once I've entered the bus, I really want to start making sure that I'm keeping safety in mind at all times, because I'll be behind the wheel. So I'll go ahead and shut the door, and I will go ahead and buckle my seatbelt. As I buckle my seatbelt, I will check and make sure that there's no frays, breaks, that it's securely mounted, that it latches tightly, and that there's nothing wrong with the seatbelt. Then I will go ahead and making sure that my emergency brake is on and my foot is on the brake. There's no obstacles or pedestrians anywhere around me. I will perform a safe start. I'll put the key in the ignition and putting my foot on the brake. I'll go ahead and start it. As I start it, I can see that my volts are in, my voltmeter is working, and that the range is in proper working order. It's about 13 volts. My fuel is at a good level. My oil pressure is at a good level. My water temperature, both of these gauges are working, and that they're working in a proper level. On this particular bus, there's also an amp meter. My examiner didn't know why there would be volts and amps. So you could mention it, or you could just mention the volts and leave that one out, because he was very confused by that. Then I will go ahead and make sure that all the lights on my dash work. So I'll check my left blinker, my right blinker, my hazards, which on this bus it's right behind the blinker mechanism. They're working. And then I would check to make sure that my brights is working. It's dim, but it's right there. I would also make sure that my defrost is working, my heater is working, my wipers work, and then I would go ahead and either check the outside lights myself or ask the examiner to help me. So to do that, you go ahead and have the examiner come on out of the vehicle, and you indicate which lights you're checking. So on the front of the vehicle, it's your left blinker, your right blinker, your hazards, and then your lights and your high beams. And then he or she would go to the back, and you would do the same. It would be your left blinker, your right blinker, your hazards, your brake lights, and your clearance lights. And actually there's clearance lights on the front of it. I forgot to say that as well. So assuming that all of those are working, and then I would go ahead and do my 3 brake tests. Making sure that there's no pedestrians or obstacles around me. I make sure that my emergency brake is on, which it is, the bar is down. And I lightly accelerate after putting the vehicle into drive, making sure that the vehicle doesn't move at all. I'll go ahead and put it back in neutral. The second brake test is I pump the brake 3 times and hold it down for 5 seconds, making sure that the brake pedal doesn't move or become spongy. And as you can tell in the first brake test, the emergency brake did hold. There was no movement of the bus when I accelerated. The last brake test, I'll go ahead and take the emergency brake off. I drive at 5 miles an hour and I come to a complete stop, making sure that the bus doesn't have any problems coming to a complete stop in a proper amount of time, and that the brakes do not jerk or fade on me. So I'll go ahead and do that. And again, making sure that I'm safe at all times. So I can tell that the brakes work well. I'm going to go ahead and put my emergency brake on and put the vehicle in neutral again.